So we were talking on the last row about Horace Weston and S.S. Stewart. Horace Weston was a black guy who played like this, and he teamed up with this 19th century industrialist named S.S. Stewart, who mass-produced banjos on an assembly line. One interesting aspect of that is that many times there are banjos which have pearl inlays and very fancy trees and vines and things like that. Well, Stewart made a lot of banjos like that because they sold well to aristocratic white people, as he put it. And I found out through some friends of mine who made this banjo, and you know about banjo making, that you get something called pearl lung from cutting out pearl to inlay the neck. And people die of it, too. It's one of the many hazards of building instruments. There are a lot of other hazards like breathing glue and things like this. But at any rate, so Stewart had these people working in the factory who maybe were musicians, you know, maybe that's the way they came to work in the factory there and make Stewart banjos. But they mass-produced banjos and Stewart sold them. And he had this guy named Horace Weston, who was a black guy, who toured around and he got people interested in the banjo. And then, out of Washington, Quebec, a Canadian named Alfred A. Farland came. And Farland had devised a new method of playing the instrument. And Farland's method, rather than hitting the strings and the notes with your fingernail, involved picking, like a classical guitarist. But it's different than a guitarist, right? If people watching this film know something about that, the method is different. It involves alternate picking on the inside strings. But at any rate, Farland came and he played classical pieces like very heavy European Anglo-Saxon, well, Anglo-White or whatever, pieces of music, and not black minstrel music. And he played concerts, and he played the, I suppose what the contemporary classical pianist of his day played on the banjo, just like Segovia did on the guitar. And so Farland toured around. Stewart gave him a lot of money. Farland toured around, and from what I'm told by people who know more about this than I do, is that Farland never did attract very big audiences. That his music just wasn't something that people could get into. But at any rate, the banjo did become popular, and people liked a lot of the minstrel music, and they liked the idea of syncopation. But they adapted the banjo, the black instrument, to white music, which was popular at the time, like polkas and waltzes and shotishes and well, eventually ragtime, jazz, and things like that. But at any rate, they adapted the music to things like this. So that's a waltz, and it's recent. It's composed by another Canadian, but the white people adopted the banjo to playing that type of music rather than slave tunes or whatever the slaves played. God knows what the slaves played. And that style of banjo playing was once dominant. It became highly developed. It started out in with Alfred A. Farland, who was a Canadian. He went to the States and he toured around. And he made this music popular. Now, at this time, the minstrel music maybe was more popular, and there were all sorts of things where people performed in blackface. Banjo players, white banjo players, would burn cork and they would put it on their face and make themselves black. They would talk in black language to describe things like operas and famous European classical musicians who came to the States to tour. And that's the origin of the word burlesque, in that type of making fun of high-class music. So the banjo went on, and there were other people who passed Stewart in their ability to make banjos, and the playing went on. And jazz came along, eventually in the 5-string banjo played in that style fell out of use. However, in England and in Canada, it was carried on by people like William Miles and Clifford Essex and Emil Grimshaw. We have to stop it. So in the last draw, I got confused. I was trying to talk about the adoption of the banjo styles by white people. So at any rate, I'm not a perfect player, as we were talking about between rolls, and I'm an amateur, but I'll try to play the hardest thing I know, which is adopted by a white American named Thomas Armstrong. It's played on the banjo, and I'm not sure when he wrote it, but I guess it was before it was about 1880, something like that, around then. It's called a Watch Hill March, and it's supposedly the march which they changed the guards in Buckingham Palace with. And it's real hard, so I'll try to play it, but there's always one place usually where I mess up and others a lot of times. I'll start again. That's an amateur. So that's the Watch Hill March. And that's an example of how the American white people adapted their style of music to the instrument of black people. So the style of playing was invented by a Canadian, and the style of music and playing banjo that we moved from the States, and I guess through Canada to England. One of the people who played in Canada is named William Miles.